Hello, hello, hello. And for those of you who are in the States, I hope you all had a good, happy Thanksgiving and aren't too into too much of a turkey coma. Um, I don't know whether I should hope that you still have leftovers or not, so that's I'll leave that one up to you. Hopefully it was good and you're enjoying your weekend. And you're not getting stuck in traffic getting back home, hopefully not. Um, I've got a quote today from probably an unlikely source, and that people you probably wouldn't, or someone you wouldn't like. Let's start that one all over again. Got a quote today from somebody you probably wouldn't think that I would use, but let me go with the quote first, and then I'll tell you who said it. Your self worth is determined by you. You don't have to depend on someone telling you who you are. And that's Beyonce. And I'm going to guess, or I'm going to assume, which I realize is not always a good thing to do, but in this particular case, I think it's a fairly good idea. Statistically probable that if you're online, you probably know who Beyonce is. So, it's not some deep, dark somebody who's been dead for 1,000 years. Um, but Beyonce is basically saying, your self worth is up to you. Now, before I get into this, I'd want to start with just talking about grades. Actually, that's going to seem a little weird, but just go with me. I'm hopefully I will make that connection. So let's say we've got two people, Pat and Terry, and they're in school and they get a grade back. I'm sure all of you have been in this scenario at some point in time. So this is one of the reasons I'm picking this particular scenario. It's also, shall we say, safe. Anyway, Pat and Terry get a grade back on the same test or assignment or whatever it is. Terry gets a 75. Pat gets a 75. Terry looks at it and Terry is disappointed because Terry expected better. Terry starts getting really disturbed about that 75. Pat, on the other hand, looks at it and is ecstatic because Pat expected to fail. Now, what do we have here? The grade, the 75, that's a number. That's it. That's just the number. It's 7-5. End of story. I could write it on one of my little boards and that's it. What's the important thing here is not the grade or the number, but what each individual gave to that, the importance or lack thereof that person gave to that number. So that when we're looking at things like a grade or anything else like that, a particular color or whatever, it's not the thing that's the important part. Let me use another example. Let's say food, since we just got through Thanksgiving, at least in the States, spicy. You all know that what's spicy to one person is not necessarily spicy to somebody else. And what may be bland for you may be absolutely, totally, completely out of left field for somebody else. It's just they can't do it. Same goes with food of anything. I mean, you could like one particular dessert and somebody like something else. I've seen a lot of little things on Facebook and other places about which food would you leave out of the Thanksgiving menu. And different people have different opinions about what they could leave out. The food in and of itself is not the big deal. The important part is what that person thinks or each person thinks of that particular food. I could be mad about, I don't know, dark meat on the turkey, and you may not. Does that say anything about the dark meat? Doesn't say anything about that at all. It just says about where you're coming from with that. Okay, does that make sense? And here I want to go and make that jump and that leap into the concept of this is where we come from with our self-worth. We make up our own ideas about what our self-worth is or is not, as the case may be. We all have skills, and you've all been in some place, believe it or not, you may have ignored it, but you've been in a situation in which somebody was really in awe of something you did and really thought that wish they could do something, and you blew it off. This whole thing, anybody can do it. Yeah, who cares? But to somebody else, that's important, and they wish they could do it. In many cases, when it comes to you and your self-worth, you blow it off because you don't think it's a big deal, and other people do. You belittle yourself because you don't see how important that could be. And even if we just ignore the concept of importance and whether it's got low importance or high importance or anything, you've got it, you're there, that's it. You've got these skills, you've got these abilities, you've got these thoughts, you've got these experiences, and they're all valuable. Now, granted, some of them are going to be less pleasant than others, but they all contribute to who you are and what makes you you. And here's where a lot of people get hung up because you have a different set of skills and experience. And so for some obscure reason, you think you should be like somebody else or not like somebody else. And you don't stop to think about the fact that that other person has a completely different set of skills and experiences, and there's no way you're going to be able to pull the two of them together. If anybody is an identical twin, or even if you're just a twin, or you've got a sibling who looks a lot like you, people will assume, and here in this case, assuming is dangerous, that because you're a twin, or because somebody's a twin or a triplet or whatever, that multiple birth, that they're going to be like each other. My brother had twin daughters. They were not identical. One was a blonde, one was a redhead, and the similarities ended right there. Trust me on that. But everybody just sort of assumed that because they were twins, that they were going to be like each other and have the same preferences and same likes and dislikes. And that was definitely not true. So that, what makes you think that you need to be like somebody else or unlike somebody else? And when you start doing that, you're demeaning your own self-worth because you don't see the value in who you are and the experiences that you brought to the table for everybody. Does this make sense? Can you follow me? In a sense, you're looking at yourself as that number 75 from the great example I gave you. The 75, you are just, that's it. That may sound kind of demeaning, but I don't mean it that way. What I'm trying to get across to you is the idea that if you demean yourself, you are demeaning yourself. Not necessarily anybody else. And even if they did, who cares? They're not living your life. You are. And if you're demeaning your own life and demeaning yourself because you don't think you are, I've got any self-worth, when things go wrong and when you say, I don't know why everything keeps happening to me, why do you expect anything decent to happen to you when you don't think anything's decent for you? Can you begin to see the parallel? How can you see that you're going to have a life that's what you want it to be if you can't see your self-worth as being reasonable or acceptable to you? Because once you start thinking of yourself as being valuable, once you start seeing your self-worth as being something that's good for you, you start making other choices. And you start making better choices. And then you're going to end up making a better life for yourself than when you start making choices and think, oh, well, this is no big deal. Who cares? I'm not worth it anyway. And so you take something cheap just simply because you think you're cheap or you're not worth it. How do you expect to get anywhere? And how do you expect to have a decent life by your standards of decency? And decent, I mean, in this case, is to whether you've got money or not necessarily whether you're decent or indecent, because that again is up to your determination of decent or indecent. Again, it goes back to your opinion of what you want. And it all goes back to, at least I'm thinking and presenting here, it goes back to your self-worth. So let's take a page out of Beyonce's book and start believing in yourself and recognizing the fact that your self-worth is good just because you're here. Some of you are going to find it difficult for me to say that you're valuable because you are. That may be hard for some of you to take. Think in terms of the fact that you, in a sense, are a history book. Now, some of you who hate history may not like this analogy, but go with me. You're a history book. You are the sum of a variety of different experiences. You've known different people. You've tried different things. So you've got experiences that you can share with other people so that they can learn some things because of what you have lived. Isn't that valuable to somebody? So share who you are and learn to appreciate what you've got. And the more you start looking at yourself and believing in yourself and accepting your own self-worth, I dare say that you're going to find that your life is going to improve. And I think this is a good thing for you to start thinking about before we get to New Year's resolutions. So if you start thinking in terms of, how do you make the most out of yourself, and get the life that you want, I think some of you may want to start thinking in terms of how much do I value my own self-worth? And for those of you who do already value your self-worth, please say something and validate what I'm saying, because I think you would probably agree with me. And those of you who say that that's totally baloney, it would be nice to have the other people say something too. Anyway, hopefully this made a point and you can now understand why I started off with the grade of 75. Just think in terms of where you're putting yourself and whether you're playing yourself down or whether you're building yourself up, because that does make a difference. I hope this was helpful. And if it wasn't helpful for you, maybe you can think of somebody else and send it to them. Please do make comments about whether you agree with me or not so that other people can see your viewpoint and not just from my place. Okay, we'll see you around and I will chat with you later. We'll see you. Bye.